Well, thank you everyone for taking some time to meet with us again today. So quickly I'll run over the agenda here for our hour we have together. So I think after we get settled here for a bit, we'll review where we ended last semester and the input we've received from our sponsors to date, touch on some sustainability related successes since we last met, before transitioning to kind of updates and a couple opportunities for full group discussion around how we think about preparing for leadership transition and our new chancellor, next steps on our resilience commitment, and our idea for a sustainability strategy roadshow. So, and of course, we'll finish up from there with kind of a next steps discussion. So with that, we will just go ahead and dive right in. As usual, we have many familiar faces here on the call, but I do want to welcome one new member for their first meeting. Dan here is joining us representing University Staff Congress. He comes to us from the Animal and Dairy Sciences Department, has a great background of work and passion for sustainability issues. So welcome, Dan, and thank you for joining. All right, so we'll be meeting a little less frequently, so let's reorient ourselves or sort of where we're at with all this. You don't get to live it day to day like we do. So if you can remember back to our last semester, we kind of worked with your guidance and with individual follow-ups to stage some of our proposed action groups, align them with quick win opportunities that we see in the near term, as well as kind of pulling together a definition for sustainability at UW-Madison. We got some additional guidance from the Vice Chancellor for Finance and Administration, VCFA, to think through about aligning kind of funding and resource needs to that kind of action plan. That was kind of what we pulled together, had a chance to meet with our sponsors, with the Provost and the VCFA, to talk through kind of where we're at. And they had two main points of input and feedback for us. The first was that our snackable definition for sustainability was good, but I think, as we stressed, necessarily broad. And I think what that, their emphasis then is that as we think about specific programs, projects, resource needs, requires that kind of extra level of detail and specificity at that level to make sure we're clear on where that fits in. And then the second comment, I think, was very pragmatic, which was to acknowledge that we are in the midst of a leadership transition here on campus with a new chancellor coming in this summer. And so before that they were comfortable making a significant investment in the proposals we have put forward. They did stress that there's a lot of opportunities for us to continue, though, to make progress on some of the quick wins and a subset of the action groups that we can support with our existing team and our existing resources. So good feedback and a good helpful kind of focus on our opportunity to keep pushing things forward. With that input in mind, I'll maybe take just 2 minutes here to highlight some of the successes that we've been able to keep pushing on since we last met, and then we'll return and spend the bulk of our time together talking through kind of our thoughts of responding to that feedback and how we can continue to make success here in the near term. So on the front of kind of quick wins, we want to highlight a few things for you. One is we've had some great support and identification of some additional program revenue funds from facilities planning and management to support some sustainability pilot projects. So these are a number of projects across campus. Some of them are solar bus shelters. You may have seen a story about that. Additional metering infrastructure, some expansion of solar energy on campus, as well as just energy efficiency, renewable energy planning, some sort of kiosks with Geary, those opportunities. We also are doing some pilot projects on looking at the use and benefits of some sensors on waste and recycling stations within buildings, and that's funded through additional program. Beyond kind of the world of facilities, we have a graduate student who is working with faculty who want to transition if they have a temporary course attribute for sustainability, to turn that into a permanent course attribute. There's sort of an administrative process for doing that for courses, and so we're supporting that. We are planning for Earth Week, so Earth Day is at the end of April. We generally have an Earth Week with a number of events across campus. We've got 15 events thus far. We're getting ready for our next group of undergraduate student interns, looking like somewhere around 20. They'll be starting with us over the summer. And then we've also we've had one, and we actually have our second this Friday, of a monthly coffee chat for faculty or academic staff that do or work or research in the sustainability space. Really is a goal to start to build some community. As I said, our next one is this Friday, so I will follow up with this from this meeting with the details on when and where that is. So if you or anyone from your team is interested in joining us and want some donuts and coffee Friday morning, we'd love to have you. That's kind of the quick win side on the planning front. We'll talk today a little bit more around our preparation for climate action and adaptation planning. But we've been doing some other planning around energy generation and agricultural impact research development. Agrovoltaics is the word, at our Kaganza Research Campus, southwest of campus here. We've been working with the senior class as they would like their senior class gift to support the Green Fund we have on campus. So we're really excited about that. And then been collaborating with other UW system schools for the April Board of Regents meeting, as there'll be some time at that meeting to talk about sustainability across the system and opportunities and benefits of kind of collaborating at the system level. Throwing a lot at you here at first, doing a lot of talking as we start. So forgive us on that. I'm sure there's probably plenty of other things that are happening around campus that we don't have details on, and Giri might have one to add, but I was going to say, if anyone has anything else that they're aware of or would like to add, I want to throw it in the chat or jump in here for a second, go for it. Otherwise, I had one more update, which was that we've continued our work on collecting data for stars, and want to give an update on where that is looking. Feel free to throw anything to the chat, but stars. So for those of you, just to refresh everyone's memory, STARS stands for Sustainability Tracking Assessment and Rating System. And it's that standard sustainability rating mechanism for the higher education sector. So our first report we did back in 2018, it was done in 2019, looking at fiscal year 18. And it really formed a basis for a lot of our work together. If you remember back to our first year and a half, we were looking at our gap analysis, how we compared to our peers. We are doing the kind of final review of our next STARS report, and we expect a kind of official score at the end of April, but we want to give this group a preview of where it's looking. We have increased our total score from about 51 to 59. Those numbers don't mean a lot. We are still in the silver range, but getting closer to reaching gold. We about reached our peers in the operations category of STARS and made really good jumps in the academics and the engagement section, but definitely, more for us to do. Let me pause for any questions on STARS, where we're at, sponsor feedback, anything at this point.
I have a quick question.
Mm-hmm.
What's the score for gold?
Yeah, so the number is 65.
Okay.
So we were the score to get silver was 45. So last time we were kind of just past the silver, and I think we've moved from just past the silver to approaching gold. It seems doable for our next time around, as long as we continue to make progress.
That's good. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any assessment you can share with us as far as our peers? So, we're making progress as compared to them, but do they continue to make progress as well? Like, how hard is it to move these numbers? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. So this is the Big Ten average of their kind of current scores for any schools. So the blue bars in this, and that does include updates from last time we did this. So when I was looking at kind of change in scores, in general, I would say when schools get to gold, you see a kind of plateauing, and there isn't quite as much advancement from that. So within the Big Ten, there's the majority of schools are at the gold level. With that said, I did see scores jump up in the range of 2 to 3 points. So not a big change in our peers at that. I'll get to it in our next section, although I think we'd love to go above and beyond the peers and get to that level beyond gold.
Alex, you may be going to address this, but as we think about that roadmap plan, that your strategic plan, and also some of the recent wins that you just shared with us, are there particular things on there that you feel like would have an exponential or really high value impact on jumping these numbers to 65, and in what area?
Yeah, definitely. That's something that we've started to think about, and we've aligned the kind of strategy and roadmap to the points that it would get us. I definitely think that there's those areas in engagement and academics, as you look at that, especially our kind of peers approach to getting to that gold level. That's where we have the biggest gap and the opportunity. So some of the engagement programs that we had kind of aligned with that integrate sustainability idea, programs on peer educators, training, informal things, or things that are recognized by STARS and help us get the points. On the academic side, it's that opportunity to just create more learning. Some of our biggest places is that course attribute and getting more instructors aware of it and finding the right fits to help kind of increase our course offerings in that.
Alex, this is no.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, can you hear me? So I see that operations seems to be the area of greatest distance, and I see planning and administration, as kind of lower setting for any of the the comparisons we have there. What in the area of operations could be improved, since that seems to be the the greatest distance in achieving points?
Yeah, in terms of it, looking at kind of total points and our gaps there, there's a couple areas that we're starting to make progress on that we can make, I think, some big advancements. One is our in that sustainable facilities and infrastructure approach, thinking about formalizing our process to new building design, since we haven't had kind of a formal documented way of doing that in the past, and that would help us get some more recognition in that space. And then the other piece actually is very tied to that is our kind of management of our current facilities. I'm thinking about how we formalize and document our cleaning and energy management and water management kind of programs on the existing facilities.
Yeah, that's the one, because we have such a significant footprint, right, on the space we are with all of our buildings, and the lack of green spaces on our our main campus. Knowing that the Arboretum is a part of that, as well as Lake Point. I'm just really curious about that area as we move, further along in this process. I'm just kind of intrigued with ways we can support educating those building projects and just creative ways. So yeah, thank you.
Definitely. And that's actually probably a pretty good transition to where we're going to go next, which was starting to get and thinking about that feedback we heard from our sponsors. So STARS was a really good tool for us to kind of assess progress. And if we think about the work that we've done as a team, and our recommendations is really about setting ourselves up as a leader. And that kind of rollout is a way of STARS is assessing how you get to that leadership position. And above gold is platinum. And so as we think about, executing on our, suggestions, it gets us there and tracks us to try to reach that platinum status with, NOLA operations being a place, and some of the things we'll talk about today about climate action and zero waste as being action groups we can get up and going now will help in that. And then other ones and other programs and quick wins will help make progress as well. What we wanted to get thoughts, feedback on from this group is that idea of kind of preparing for the new chancellor, and what it means to kind of continue to maintain support at top level leadership for the vision that we have for sustainability here on campus. So again, this is what we presented to our sponsors. So this is kind of the, with STARS Platinum being the goal as a way to kind of exemplify and hit leadership in the world of sustainability. But that all of our great work together really set out the vision for what it is beyond just racking up points, right? It's about advancing sustainability across our three pillars, culture, purpose, and practice, and the vision of what that would look like. as well as that definition, which helps put a little framework around what it means to be working on sustainability at UW-Madison. And this is our big strategy, which is all to say there's a lot to do and there's a lot of opportunities that we have. We're not looking to dive into the details with this group right now. I think it's more just, again, to show that we've got a plan and we can be as successful as we can be, I think, with resources and leadership support. So while we continue to focus on making, the quick wins that we can do now and standing up, I think, our first two action groups, which would be carbon neutrality and zero waste, and always being opportunistic and nimble. A lot of those kind of quick wins we talked about, 2 minutes ago were things that fell in our lap and we were able to adjust quickly and find ways to push forward. That was just a quick summary of kind of the general message that we envision kind of continuing to trumpet. And so we're kind of, maybe I'll pass it off to Nathan here to open it up for any larger discussion around how else do we think about talking about this or other things we should be considering as we know a new leader will be coming on here shortly.
Yeah, so we are, hi everyone, nice to see you once more. Hope you're all doing well, despite the fact that we can't see more than about 30 yards outside today. We're hoping to have a bit of a discussion and have you all help us think about, as Alex just said, help us think about how we should prepare for the leadership transition vis-a-vis the sustainability strategy planning that we're doing. We obviously don't know who the next chancellor will be at this point, but we will be finding out rather soon, I think. And so we'd like to open it kind of for a general conversation here, and I'll just try to kind of, I think people should jump in. You can also use the raise hand function if you want, and I'll try to catch you if I see that. But we're curious what your teams are doing to prepare for this big leadership transition with a new chancellor. And at the same time, what should we be doing to prepare our leadership, this new leadership to embrace this vision of sustainability that we've laid out. As Alex said, we heard from the project sponsors that they think there's a lot of good stuff in the work we've done together as the Sustainability Advisory Council. And they also feel as though we need to wait to do some of the more impactful, larger things because the new chancellor may have ideas about this. So we'd like to kind of hit the ground running when she or he arrives and get them excited about this work too. So I'll open it up. Let's kind of try to go the first question and the second question, but honestly, if the second one gets you excited, then we can just talk about that first. We'll talk for about 10 minutes. Gary suggested we should send a release letter to the search committee. Gary, would you mind describing briefly what that is or what you have in mind there?
I was thinking something like a press release or something to think about our campus leader, just UW-Madison, our campus leadership position, and sort of say that the committee should consider in their scoring rubric or whatnot, sensitize them about this as a priority area for them to ask questions about them as they look through different people.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I know that I believe there was a question that was added to the search committee's list for prospective candidates about sustainability, but I don't know that I ever saw the language for it. John, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that everybody's aware there is a chancellor's briefing book that is being created out of the chancellor's office currently. Key initiatives and units were requested to stay within a 4-page template, but I do know sustainability is a part of that. I haven't seen what's in there yet. I think it is incredibly important that the sustainability work that's been done, like the history, where we are presently, and then what a few of the major milestones are included in that briefing book. So I guess my suggestion would be, I don't think Missy's on the call today, but I need to make sure that Missy and Cindy Torsveit are connected to the Vice Chancellor to make sure that we're representing those, key, the history of this, where we're at presently, and then the key initiatives that we're working on, so that the incoming chancellor knows and is aware of this.
Thanks, John. It sounds like Sarah said that it's passed, it's being assembled, but there may be some information in there that we can at least review.
And the idea of sort of maybe charging members of this group or our leadership with a question, either for the open session or for some of the sub interviews of the finalists, I think could be an effective approach, because those, they're different sets of groups who will be meeting with the chancellor candidates. And so there might be a variety of avenues through which to have a question about sustainability or related in several different venues with the candidate.
So our department chair is on the search committee. I can request to ask from her where or which group would be most appropriate to field a question on behalf of us from her, and I'll report back to Alex on a note, and then we can coordinate from there.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, these are great ideas. Go ahead, Nola.
You're on mute, Nola.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. With regards to the, and I'm sorry, is it okay to respond to question 2? I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
absolutely. Yep.
I'm sorry, my mind kind of jumps around a bit. I was thinking, in order to prepare a new leadership, I think it's important that we, when there are visits and presentations, that we do really kind of push for a question there that inquires about their perspective on the value of sustainability. So that kind of puts it in there that it's a value and a priority that we hold. And then as the process proceeds and they identify an ultimate incumbent, that that there's efforts made to early on perhaps have a meeting about the value of sustainability, our efforts, but also how might that facilitate their orienting conversations with others as they go through it, because that way they'll be able to offer that into conversation if it's not proactively provided to them. I think that's really the key, naming and identifying. So if we kind of float that value very early on, if all effort could be applied to getting that as one of the interview questions, that would be really wonderful for each of the candidates to have to respond to. So I'm just thinking that, because that really lets them know, the boy coming in to this position, what's the value? What do I need to build up on my knowledge about? Or great, I have some ideas and experiences I'd like to see this campus do, and I'm glad to hear that it's a value. And as they are informed and as they prepare for coming on campus, it would be so wonderful to have a leader knowledgeably, not just drop words, but knowledgeably talk about what they would like to see as they engage with other leaderships in this campus. So I'll just stop there. So we're not an add-on, we're integrated. So yeah, I'm done.
Yeah, I think that's well put, and that I kind of want to turn that to the larger group to emphasize, how do we ensure that sustainability is not just considered an add-on, but is kind of felt as part of the culture and priority here. And maybe we've already kind of answered this question, but I think it's one of the bigger challenges to face as we go forward.
So for the second question, I think we should invite the new chancellor to come to visit our meeting as soon as we can, and prepare one of your road shows, or Alex, whatever you have to get them know about us and our work and how we can help with the chancellor to realize the collective vision for our campus.
That's really well put. Thank you. Let's go to Sarah, and then I think I should move us to the next section. Go ahead, Sarah.
Thanks, thanks, Nathan. One thought I had was, as either the Chancellor's Executive Committee starts to articulate priorities to share with the new Chancellor, or the new Chancellor themselves starts to come out with or articulate some priorities for campus, it might be a worthy exercise to take a look at the key priorities in the Office of Sustainability and map those to the existing priorities. And you probably had already planned to do that, but I think rather than, or in addition to kind of saying, here is the whole Office of Sustainability set of priorities as another thing to get on the Chancellor's radar, it may work to break it up into pieces and simply have them attached to the existing and leverage that existing set for strength and reinforcement.
Yeah, great point. One more. More from, oh, go ahead, Gary.
I'll wait for Cheryl.
Okay, Cheryl.
Just to add on to what Sarah is saying, I think it is important, while we have priorities, to establish, what's it called, a sense of urgency in a particular area. The sort of principled in change management, like we've got to create a sense of urgency to take action in a particular area while we're establishing sustainability as a value, because I think that's we have to establish that going forward.
And do you think we should make that argument, Cheryl, that what we consider to be the space of urgency?
Yeah, I think we have to. I think we have to create a sense of urgency in a particular area, because sustainability, as we have learned over our time together, is so broad, right? So considerate of so many things. What can we establish as a sense of urgency today? A matter of priority for the new leader coming into our organization.
Yeah, that's really helpful, because you're absolutely right. It can be easy to just say, whatever you want to do in sustainability, we'd love to do it, but that's not necessarily galvanizing for any real action or vision.
Right.
All right. I think we should move on, because I'm aware we have a bunch of other things to talk about, but this has been great feedback. So thank you. I'll hand it back to Alex here.
Awesome. Thank you so much. A ton of good ideas here to take away. Maybe some follow-ups for everyone here on as we formulate our plan. I am lucky enough to actually hand it off to Josh Arnold from our team, who's going to chat a little bit about our work on the resilience commitment, and in particular, the way that the framework that we've developed through the SAC and the sustainability definition and all that is helping us frame our response to that and climate action planning. So off to you, Josh.
Great, thanks so much, Alex. So just to set the stage for everyone, in a parallel path to the work that we've been doing with the Sustainability Advisory Council, I think most of you are aware that there is a parallel path that we're working on called the Second Nature Resilience Commitment. And this is a consortium of universities, institutions of higher education around the world that have made commitments to climate leadership, and we are one of those institutions. And so I'm here to just speak briefly about where we are in that process. And as Alex mentioned, how our work to implement and forge a path forward for the resilience commitment links up with some of the previous questions and discussion topics we've had in terms of getting things ready for new leadership, instilling a sense of urgency, talking about how we can improve operations and galvanize additional momentum. So why don't we move on to the next slide, and I'll share a little bit about what we've developed so far. So our approach right now for the resilience commitment includes achieving carbon goals through three different strategies or three different approaches to achieving our carbon goals. So the first approach is an approach that many people might be familiar with, is called looking at our carbon footprint. Nola, I think you had mentioned earlier the idea of footprint. And so that's essentially all of the operations that we have, our 400 plus facilities, 900 plus acres on our main campus, as well as our outlying facilities and lands over 15,000 acres interspersed throughout the state of Wisconsin. And most institutions will look at their carbon footprint when they're looking at their carbon goals, and we certainly are as well. So that piece of it includes three components: a scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3. And those are technical terms that refer to emissions, purchased electricity, and indirect emissions such as supply chain. And trust me, we'll have lots of time to get into all the details in other meetings. And I invite anyone to if you're interested, please feel free to follow up, and I'm happy to share more details about the footprint. And so that's sort of standard operating procedures for institutions that are looking to develop a climate action plan, such as we are for the resilience commitment. What fewer institutions are doing is looking at what we call their carbon handprint, or the positive attributes of things that institutions and the people who work at the institutions are doing. So, for example, we also talked about Lakeshore Nature Preserve earlier in the call. And it turns out, a third of our main campus is a managed wetland, the Lakeshore Nature Preserve. And that's part of what we would call natural capital.
Yeah.
Lakeshore Nature Preserve provides ecosystem benefits to our campus and to the larger community. We have researchers on campus who look into quantifying the benefits associated with those ecosystem benefits: flood prevention, wildlife habitat, et cetera. But that's not something that's typically taken into account in a carbon handprint or overall carbon approach. We think that it makes sense to do that, not only for Lakeshore Nature Preserve, but also looking at our outlying properties, extension properties, agricultural research stations, and other locations throughout Wisconsin that the university manages on behalf of the Board of Regents. Natural capital is just one aspect of what we would call our carbon handprint, or the positive attributes of what our institution does. We can also look at elements that help improve or increase resilience on campus, and not just for physical campus, but for the people and the institutions on campus as well. And of course, looking at engagement, starting of course with all the work that you all have done with the Sustainability Advisory Council, and telling stories about the great work that's going on campus. So those two aspects are part of our carbon goals. The third part of our carbon goal, which pretty much no other institution is looking at, is what we would call our carbon aura. And I can confidently say that no other institution is looking at their carbon aura, because we coined the term carbon aura. And what we mean by carbon aura is taking into account our institution's research in carbon neutrality and resilience studies, Our institutions work in providing learning, both formal and informal educational opportunities for students, staff, and faculty, and our institution's innovation in this overall area. Now, these may not be necessarily quantifiable types of things, but some of them may be. But including topics of our carbon aura enables us to tell our story, our rich legacy of environmental stewardship, as well as the future of innovation and our future climate leadership that we have on campus. So when we put all three of those aspects together, decreasing our carbon footprint, increasing our carbon handprint, and telling the story of our carbon aura, we get to what we are currently calling our goal of our Badger Print goal. The purpose of the Badger Print is the penultimate goal of our carbon neutral plan. A Badger Print means an equitable, a resilient, and a regenerative UW-Madison. Not only our physical campus, but the people that are on our campus and the organizations and units within our campus. So that's our draft framework for approaching climate action and adaptation for our institution. As you can see, what we have here is very much what we would call in the startup world a MVP, or a minimum viable product. We have the framework here that we think provides an avenue for a rich discussion, a rich debate, and lots of interaction between all sorts of campus stakeholders who might be interested in having their input on what a Badger Print goal might look like for them. And that's our goal. So between now and the end of the year, we are looking to have discussions with campus stakeholders, students, staff, faculty, individuals, organizations, formal campus units, and get their feedback about what does a vision of an equitable, resilient, and regenerative UW-Madison look like to them, and how can they help tell the story of what's happening now, as well as help paint the vision of the future of what our campus might look like. If we can go on to the next slide. And how we are envisioning linking up this initiative with our STARS initiative and with our SAC recommendation is a timeline similar to what you see here. Where we are today, as Alex mentioned previously, we've done our first STARS assessment a couple of years ago. We are currently updating our STARS assessment. We are at Silver. And likewise, we've done a number of sustainability initiatives, back from the 2010 task force to standing up this council and initiatives associated with it. And as Alex mentioned earlier, we have a vote of confidence from campus leadership in implementing a suite of sustainability pilot projects that will help make improvements in campus operational performance. In addition, Alex has mentioned some of the good work that's going on academics and research as well. Over time, we expect to gain additional momentum in this area and increase the performance of campus operations to hit these interim milestones over time. Improving campus operational performance by 25% by 2025, achieving a goal of 100% renewable energy for campus by 2030, and achieving a goal of having a carbon neutral campus by 2040. And then continuing on to meet our Badger Print goal, which is not just a carbon neutral campus, but a campus that is regenerative in that it provides more benefits than it takes. So that's part of the long-term vision. But each one of these interim milestones, there's room to further define what each one of these goals means and how we would go about implementing it. And that's what the carbon neutral action group will be supporting, is implementing this vision. Meanwhile, as we continue to make progress towards our carbon goals, well, that will be reflected in our improved STARS performance as well. So as you can see on the timeline, moving from silver, we hope that by 2025, as we implement these operational standards, we'll be able to make up some of the headway, Nola, that you had pointed out earlier, in making up some of those points in the operational performance and getting us closer to a STARS gold rating. And then as we continue to make improvements on operations as well as the other STARS categories, we'll be able to improve our STARS rating and hope to have a platinum rating somewhere around the 2030 range. I'm going to go to the next slide, please. So I'm going to turn it back to Alex to talk about our approach for gathering up grassroots support for this initiative and how we're going to be working together to gain momentum and put ourselves in the best possible position to be ready for new leadership on campus, as well as to activate and recognize the amazing work that's going on throughout campus already. So Alex, why don't I turn it back to you?
Awesome, thanks Josh. This will be a few minutes and then we'll rest of the time for discussion. And I saw Nola and Sarah going back and forth on a Lakeshore topic that's pretty interesting in the chat as well. But thank you, Josh, for that. I know there's a parallel path, but we hope that there's alignment between these two and really using the work that we've done to inform how we think about the climate action and ultimately the work of the Carbon Neutrality Action Group. So I think this idea of this Sustainability Strategy Roadshow that we'd love some kind of thoughts or feedback on is an opportunity for us to kind of take all of this great discussion out from this group and bring it to campus, right? Excuse me. So that we really are at a point where we're not just providing transparency, but championing all the great work and really being a way for us to do that grassroots support that Josh said and find and identify people who are interested and build an understanding of why sustainability is a value. And I think, as we talked about earlier, what those urgent areas are and build the sense of urgency. So it's not just coming from us, but it's coming from across campus. I think more than anything, it'd be important to not just give an update on what we've done, but to look for opportunities for involvement and engagement in campus and really be that kind of planting the seed of building that culture of sustainability that we've talked about as one of the goals. So what does a Sustainability Roadshow look like? First, I'm going to show just 2 slides. These are not the slides we imagined that we would present. We're actually working with marketing on how to pull that together. So it'll be a little bit slicker than this. But the idea is that we meet with individual teams around campus to build both engagement, maybe through a quick pre-meeting survey to understand attendees, knowledge or interest in sustainability, have a short then discussion overview of the definition we've developed, the framework we've developed, the other sustainability aligned leadership commitments and approaches to meeting them, like the resilience commitment that Josh said. And ideally finding ways of linking those a little bit to what Sarah was talking about back to that team's specific mission or goals. And then transition to identifying opportunities for involvement from the groups that we meet with, ranging from just kind of staying up to date through our existing communication channels to actively collaborating on existing sustainability programs that we're kind of running to date, to maybe even developing or running their own efforts to advance their specific missions. These could be formal type things, including sustainability and strategic planning, facilities planning, maybe even setting up kind of internal working groups. The study abroad team on campus has actually done that kind of their own accord. We've been supporting them on that, but they've been a great leader in thinking about what sustainability means in the study abroad space. Or maybe even participating in the community of practice, something like that. So anyway, I think to be successful, we know we'd have to be flexible and kind of adaptable to the interests of any groups that we're meeting. We're a large campus doing lots of different things, and every team has got very different focus. So we have to kind of keep that focus. I also want to be clear that we're not asking this group to go out and be the ones giving the workshops. We imagine that would be kind of our staff leading it, but we would look for you both at this point for guidance on this kind of approach, and also as we identify groups where you have a relationship and the insight for how to best frame those discussions or make introductions to teams. So I know we're running a little low on time, but I will hand it back to Nathan, and who can open it up for discussion around this topic. We'll leave like 1 minute at the end for any next steps wrap up.
Great, yeah. So what Alex just showed you is sort of the three-part way of engaging folks. And as someone who does a lot of our communications, I think it's become clear to me that just because you give people options doesn't mean they're going to take them up. And so I think part of what we're interested in is how we help move sort of roadshow attendees, as it were, from awareness to more active engagement. And that's part of it behind the idea of not just giving them sort of information, but also saying, here's ways that you can collaborate with us, as in maybe you can get your office certified, or maybe you can work with us in some other way if you're a faculty member. And then the activate piece that he mentioned had a few different options there, and that could include joining our community of practice or sort of taking on making your unit more sustainable, like Study Abroad did. But there's sort of some key pieces in there where you need to support these potential folks in doing that work, but also not then take on 1 million new clients basically across campus. So we're curious what you all think about that, how we kind of facilitate that move from awareness to engagement. And in the meantime, if you have ideas of who we should contact for the roadshow, we invite you to just drop their names in the chat so we can keep in touch, or rather keep a list of them. And if you'd rather just email people to us, that's fine too. And Sarah, before I go any farther, do you have your hand up?
I do. I have a two-part, well, I have a question and then a suggestion, but it depends on the answer to your question. How will you identify the audience for the roadshow?
Well, I kind of going to punt this to Alex, but I think we're imagining it to be folks who are kind of running different units or departments across campus, potentially, sort of not necessarily upper leadership, but people who are going to help create systems on campus. But I would think that any of their teams would be invited too, because we really want to make this, a full community engagement piece. Alex, what do you think? That's a pretty vague answer.
I'm going to do the annoying. I don't necessarily have a better answer, but maybe interested, Sarah, in your thoughts on the right types of level or groups on campus. I think we imagine we'd start with some friendlies, connections of folks who we thought would be interested. No need to start with the hard groups and learn from that.
So I have a couple of different thoughts. One is a roadshow can serve several different purposes, right? And kind of getting back to Cheryl's point about and your desire to establish kind of a feeling of urgency. I wonder if you want to think about the roadshow as having maybe 2 or 3 different forms. So rather than having one roadshow that is sort of the same thing to everybody and being really broad, I wonder if you want to, I wonder if you would develop one roadshow around an initiative. So for example, if the office, if really running after that course is the thing where you feel like you want to put your eggs in the basket, then perhaps developing a roadshow that paints a larger picture, but really focuses on the course and what you need with people to develop that course. As opposed to, hey, here's an office on campus that just kind of wants to know a little bit more about what the sustainability thing is all about. And then somewhere in the middle where you're maybe trying to win champions, right? So there's sort of we have a particular ask to help of a cohort we pre-identified to help us achieve an objective. we have a general awareness building, kind of the 101, and then we've got we're trying to make our business case, and we see a couple of places in our strategic plan where these groups of campus partners could fit in, but you're making more of a convincing case. So just a recommendation there to be really clear on what you're trying to get. Because if you just do kind of the same roadshow for everybody, your message will get diluted and you won't get the traction, I think, that you need or want for to achieve what you're trying to do.
That's fantastic feedback. Thanks, Sarah. We will definitely take that into account. There's also some great suggestions in the chat, so thank you, folks who've done that.
I can't raise my hand on the screen.
Please.
So, am I interrupting somebody?
You are not.
Okay. I'm sitting here. It occurs to me that you might want to set a goal that success here might be at some future point, a year or two from now, where it would be common practice for us to receive there 2 times a year where the academic leadership is pulled together by the chancellor, like at the beginning of the fall semester and the beginning of the spring semester. And it's become common practice for there to be a campus climate update report shared at both of those sessions, right? And everybody wants to make sure they're in the campus climate update report, like they've done something the last 6 months, right? And the call goes out for what have you done? It would seem to me, wouldn't that be a sign of success if after the road shows, people want to get their stuff in the twice a year sustainability update in front of the academic leadership, right? So we're getting that handout too when we go to those meetings twice a year. Missy probably gets invited to those, I would guess. So anyway, I just throw that out. I was trying to think of what success look like after you do all this, right? So
Yep, that's a really good point, Mark. And I'll say that we have been lucky enough that the chancellor has been interested in kind of semesterly reports from us, and one of those falls before that pre-fall semester set of meetings. Not having gone myself, I don't always know how much she pulls from them for the meetings, but I think she sometimes said, a few things about sustainability. But I think we can keep working on that, especially with the new chancellor coming in.
I have a question for the members of the council. Do any of your campus units have sustainability goals that you're working on?
This is Nola. I work for the General Library System, and we've designed our strategic directions, and really push for the inclusion of sustainability as a part of our committed values, but also that they're actionable. And so we're at a point of really trying to help people understand what do we mean by that, because that seems to be a word that's often thrown around. And I didn't want it to be a buzzword in our strategic directions, but what does that look like? So that's where that is. I continue to be concerned about people's understanding. I love how we've compromised and come up with a definition that encaptures our values. It makes sense. It's as good as I've seen thus far. But I'm curious about with regards to engaging people, that we need to think of a way of facilitating these conversations based upon what their interests are, the so what factor, right? So what's it to me? Yeah, it's a good thing, but I have so many things to do. I think it would be helpful to have some support in how we would pitch a conversation with them that speaks into their priority lens, right? So I put a note in the chat about speaking with building managers. Well, I know we have so many buildings related to libraries that our building managers are integral to building projects. And we may have a donor that says, oh, I'm going to offer this money for the space and I want to get it done. But maybe their particular project is not very sustainable, doesn't tap into our goals. But you want to jump at the money. You don't want to lose the money. But here's an integration of, if the building managers are aware and they have the resources to speak into these sustainability goals. That would look good actually for the potential funders, right? So we're talking about integration also of the, I can't think of their names, are the ones who petition for funds, right, from our alumni. But there's an integration there, and I think that we tend to think sometimes that higher level management when we need to look at, I guess, the frontline workers, right? And so this is moving from engagement, see what is the priority. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. That's certainly, I think that whole approach, the grassroots approach, and working with campus units to help them meet their individual sustainability goals, whether it's strategic planning, whether it's facilities, whether it's education and curriculum, whether it's alumni engagement, development, that could be a role for the roadshow over time. That could certainly be an important role for that. So thank you.
All right, back to you, Alex, in our last 30 seconds.
Oh, sorry, can I just share one? Sorry, can I just share one thing quick? And I think Alex and Nathan and certainly Missy are aware of this, but Noah, partly to your point, one of the things that came out of our most recent board meeting at the Foundation and Alumni Association is we've started discussions around developing a more comprehensive kind of integrated campaign around sustainability, much like we're doing for the Ramey Nolan project. And so that's still a little ways off, but I know that the idea of the roadshow and being able to articulate certain priorities and very concrete, here's what we're asking people to do, or here's how we will use that, will be an important audience and maybe a slightly different version of the roadshow. So I did just want to share that is underway.
Thank you, Sarah, and thanks everyone. I know we're right at the time. If you have to drop, please feel free. I have 30 seconds just to wrap up here. If I can get my cursor, yeah. So in terms of next steps, I think actually there's probably a few to add here from what we heard, the kind of like formalization of the roadshow and the different versions of it. Also maybe some interim next steps as we see progress on the new chancellor. So as there's meetings, you might see some outreach from us where there's like particular questions or a request for bringing the topic up where there's public input. So be on the lookout for that. We're working on getting our carbon neutral and zero waste groups up and running. Probably some outreach from us on inviting to your teams as it sees fit for the roadshow as that comes together. Right now, maybe probably the full next meeting in the fall when we got kind of the new crop and get going, but you will hear from us definitely via email between now and then. That's what we got for today. Happy to stick around if anyone has any questions. Otherwise, have a great rest of your day.